the Philadelphia Eagles have put their fan base through the ringer. I mean, let's face it. Historic collapse from a 10-1 start. A nightmare, really, losing 5 of their last 6 coming into the game. And tonight, a nightmare that finally ended. The season is over. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers humiliated the Eagles tonight, 32-9. And with this loss, we may be, as early as tomorrow, seeing a bloody purge. First of all, Nick Sirianni and his coaching staff. Players peeled off of this roster like onion skins. And we may have seen the very end of the careers of 3 great Eagles, including Jason Kelce, Fletcher Cox, and Brandon Graham. Because what tonight revealed is that the Eagles may have to start all over again. This is the Lehocky Eagles postgame show live from Ocean Casino. I'm Mike Missinelli with the crew, Mark Farzetta, Bill Colarulo, Seth Joyner. Fellas, just a heartless effort with a defense that missed tackle after tackle with a total lack of will. A feeble offensive attack, of course, depleted by the absence of A.J. Brown, but also a total regression in their $258 million quarterback, who really looked confused and just totally out of sorts. And we have to question at this point whether he is the guy after all. And I never thought we would get there this quick to make a decision like that with this team and this quarterback. Seth Joyner, I got to go to you first, because I thought surely that they would put forth some kind of an effort in this game. And I thought they had the better roster against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I was way wrong, because this team was fragmented and cooked coming into this game.
I got fooled as well, Mike. I really did. I really thought that this team would come out and find a way to be inspired against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers team in a situational game like this. I'm shocked. But then there's a side of me that's not shocked. And I think that this is a total rebuild from top to bottom. Nick Sirianni has continued to say that my fingerprints on everything on this roster. If that's the case, then he has to go. And you guys know for the last couple of weeks, I've stated again and again and again and again that I am not one to ever advocate for someone's lost a job. But the fact that he's lost this team, and people can in the locker room can say whatever they want to say about, oh, we're playing for Nick, we believe in Nick, we got Nick's back. That's a bunch of BS. Because as players, you don't go out on the field and put that product on the field if you really believe in your coach and his staff. Okay? Defensively, they were an abomination. If Nick made the decision to make the change at defensive coordinator, it's even more of an indictment that he should lose his job, okay? If he was forced to do it by the people upstairs, then they're complicit in everything else that you see, because defensively, they were just a mess across the board. They looked lost, uninspired, couldn't tackle. How do you get to the professional level and miss as many tackles as they've missed? I think James Bradbury has totaled over 30 missed tackles in one season. How is that even possible? That's a part of the game and part of what you do. The condemnation goes a little further, Mike, before I hand it back to you, on Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson. You knew that Todd Bowles was gonna blitz you. There were times where I saw they lined up with 3 down linemen on each side against an empty set. That means that there's only 5 offensive linemen to block 6, yet you didn't have the wherewithal to say, okay, Dallas got it, come back in so you can block one of these guys, or let's go max protect and go 2 tight ends with the back staying in and just go a 2-man route. You just, time after time after time after time again, you put Jalen Hurts in a position where he could not succeed, okay? Now, I'm not going to exonerate Jalen at all, because he played some of the worst football and looked so uninspired and so out of it on the sideline. You had Dallas talking to him and Devontae talking to him. And listen, he looked like he checked out. And when your quarterback checked out with all the meeting that you do during the week with your offensive coordinator and the head coach and the quarterback coach and everybody else that's involved, If you couldn't get him going, you're not the man for this job. They just paid that man $250 million. Do you think that if he doesn't believe in Nick Sirianni as the head coach, as the guy that can develop him and take him to the next level, do you think he's going to be here much longer? I would say to you, hell no. Gone.
Listen, we have suffered through their lack of scheme for the last 6 weeks or so. This was an obvious lack of will, and it was defined by the one touchdown where Bradbury missed the tackle, and then Byard came over with a feeble effort, like they didn't even want to be there. And that's the most disappointing and pathetic thing that I take out of this tonight. They did not want to compete in this game, Marzi.
No, and I'm going to go and concentrate on the word Seth just used, inspired. After the Eagles got through that alleged gauntlet where they were playing all the teams that were, maybe they were going to compete with, like San Francisco, for instance, the Chiefs, they beat the Chiefs, obviously. And then they obviously wet the bed when they were in Dallas playing against the Cowboys. They then go on and supposedly have an easier schedule, and they just had to make a huge organizational change by changing their defensive play caller. They did not look inspired from that point of the season on. I mean, you could say they didn't look inspired from the San Francisco 49ers on, even though we're just coming off a really hard-fought win against the Buffalo Bills in overtime. But to say this team lacked inspiration is probably the biggest indictment on their head coach. We already know about lacking creativity as an offensive play caller, offensive game plan, obviously, when it comes to Brian Johnson as well. But they looked uninspired against the Seahawks, drastically uninspired, obviously, when they went up against the New York Giants, barely able to squeak out that victory, and then completely got blown out of the water against Jonathan Gannon's Arizona Cardinals in a game that he challenges you with that onside kick at the end of the game. Utter embarrassment there. Then you can't beat the Giants to end the season after supposedly Nick Sirianni is giving some big rah-rah high school Harry pep talk to the locker room before the game. And I said after that game, that was the performance of a team begging for their head coach to get fired. Now, I didn't see a performance like that until tonight. I was hoping that the Eagles were going to be able to find that way. I didn't see them being able to do it in this game tonight. I thought there were far too many errors, far too many mistakes with not enough time left to correct them. And one of the biggest problems was this entire time, Nick Sirianni, Brian Johnson, and even Matt Patricia were talking about these correctable mistakes that the Eagles were making. Far from correctable, as we found out as this season went on. And when you talk about that word inspired, it is the job of the head coach. If he is not going to come up with some kind of genius game plan, if your offensive coordinator is not going to do a better job of calling plays, and you are putting Matt Patricia in a very tough spot to all of a sudden take command of a defense with 4 weeks left in the season, and as we learned from Hassan Reddick, that's a very difficult thing to do for a defense to then learn new terminology from their new play caller. If a head coach isn't going to overwhelm you with inspiration, then that man's got to get out of here. And I have never seen more of an uninspired effort by this Eagles team to wind down the season than what we had just seen over the last 7 weeks of the season.
Bill Colarulo, I don't know how you can top what we just spilled out about this team, but let's start with the head coach, because I happen to agree. And again, you relish calling for somebody's job, but you can't possibly bring him back to preside over what turned out to be a total mess, because nobody will buy it. Your players won't buy it. Your fan base won't buy it. I feel bad for the guy, but you can't bring him back at this point.
I agree with you, and I would have thought that would have been a complete overreaction 2 weeks ago. I thought this guy had done enough to earn to come back for another year, but you look at now what we've seen. I agree. I don't see how you bring this guy back, and it's amazing. 337 days ago. That was the night of Super Bowl 57. 337 days. And you think about how close this team was to winning a Super Bowl and how far away it seems now. What looked like such a promising coaching staff and a franchise quarterback and a team that was going to compete year after year. Where are we right now? There's so many questions with the coaching staff, the personnel. But to come out in this game, when all of us had been saying all week long, establish the run early, win the time of possession battle, keep your defense on the sidelines. Your defense isn't that good, so go on long, sustaining drives. And they ran the ball 5 times in the first half. We all knew Todd Bowles was going to blitz the hell out of Jalen Hurts. They had zero answer for it again. And you look at the defense, the fact that they are going to miss that many tackles, as far as he talks about an uninspired team, I don't see how Jeffrey Lurie watches what we just watched and says, yeah, I'm going to run it back with this head coach. A head coach who's told us this is his offense. Well, you had no answer for the blitz. You had zero game plan. Your plan every time they blitz was to drop back, run verticals, and just throw the ball up in the air. You didn't establish the run. Your team was uninspired. This was the most embarrassing thing. And then you look at that defense. This is now 3 weeks in a row that they let offenses put up over 400 yards. And we're not talking about good offenses. You're talking about the 23rd-ranked Tampa Bay Bucks. You're talking about the 30th-ranked New York Giants. You're talking about a middle-of-the-pack Arizona Cardinals offense. Every one of them went over 400 yards. And this rushing defense that was so damn good the first 9 games of the season, you just now let 9 straight opponents rush for over 100 yards on you. Epic collapse may not even be a big enough word to describe what we've witnessed this season. And I don't know when this team's going to contend again because there are a ton of questions with this organization.
Yeah, and you let Baker Mayfield throw for 337 yards, by the way. His rating tonight was 119.8. And here's the galling thing about this. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers allowed them to stay in the game. In the first half, they had 6 pass drops. One, it should have been a touchdown to Evans. And so they go into halftime with only a 16-9 lead, giving the Eagles a little bit of hope for some kind of charge in the second half. And, of course, on their first series, with this ratio pass run that Bill was just talking about, with Hurts being blitzed on 18 to 27 pass plays, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers get him for a safety. Now, listen, you got to have a quarterback. You got to have awareness where you are on a football field, and you can't have the ball in your hands when you're going to give up a safety. And they were so unaware tonight of everything around them. That made it 18-9, still in the game, and they followed that up with the double missed tackles with Bradbury and Byard and Trey Palmer with a 56-yard catch and run for a touchdown. I am just stunned at a lack of competition in this team. I just can't understand it.
I don't know if this would have changed anything, but we sat up here on the pregame show and we talked about how Slay is back. James Bradbury shouldn't be on the field. Keely Ringo has competed enough. He's shown you enough. James Bradbury shouldn't be on the field. And Seth said it. They're not going to bench James Bradbury because they're paying him too much money. So they rolled him out there again, and look at what we just saw. Not saying it would have made a huge difference if Keely played, but at least you gave yourself an opportunity. We've been watching James Bradbury get beat all season long. And now what are we going to do with this guy? Do you see his cap hit for the next 2 seasons?
$9 million?
I think this year it would be a dead cap of 5, and I think the year after it would be like 12.
Okay.
Something like that.
All right.
He's not going anywhere, unfortunately.
Basically, yeah.
You eat it. I would extend him a year, believe it or not, and go 5, 6, 6. Extend it. And then let him walk. Give him his money and let him walk. I just yeah. It's you talked about Slay being back. Slay wasn't that much better.
No, he wasn't.
So it's this team is god awful.
Let me ask you that, because listen, we can chart what happened here. So what happened? You can systematically look at this. The San Francisco 49ers just extracted their heart, and the Cowboys then piled on. And then you had the panic move with the defensive coordinator. But within a locker room that you've been in for many years, what happens to a team psychologically, mentally, when all this stuff is going on? Because it's obvious the bottom dropped out of this team.
Listen, I talked about it last week, about the game is bigger than just the physical aspect of what you do. There's a psychological side, there's an emotional side, there's a physiological side. All of those things come into play here. And it's up to a coach and his staff to be able to manage all of those things, But, to your point, I felt like, San Francisco just snatched their souls out. They haven't been the same since that game. And it's up to Nick Sirianni to figure out a way to get them, to lead them back. But I think this problem is a lot bigger than, what meets the eye. I've been saying it for the last couple of weeks, but I see a team that just doesn't believe in the voice of the head coach any longer. When you see Jalen and A.J. Brown going rogue and deciding that they're going to improvise on the most important play of the game, and that comes out. When I read an article this morning that talked about Jalen doesn't necessarily like the philosophy, that the team operates under, pushing the ball down the field. He's more for a short to intermediate passing game and a run game to go along with the offense. They've almost been like defiantly, calling plays, because I always said, if I can see it with my own two eyes and all I do is watch the game on Sunday and review the film throughout the week, these coaches spend 12 to 15-hour days putting together game plans and analyzing the analytics and all that other stuff, and you have no answer whatsoever. So I watched a team that's disenchanted with not only the plays that are being called. We even heard Jordan Mailata talk about it this week. We need to run the football. When the players start telling you as a coaching staff what you need to do and you don't do it, you come out and defiantly run the damn football 5 times in the first half after you've had success running. DeAndre Swift was averaging 4 yards a carry. 4 yards a carry, and they only gave him the ball 5 times in the entire first half, okay? So now, as players, when you see the coaches be defiant to the things that you see and you believe can work, now all of a sudden you lose faith and belief. The whole Sean Desai, Matt Patricia thing was the worst thing that they could have ever done, and this is why. Half of the locker room was still riding with Sean Desai. The other side couldn't determine whether Sean Desai was the guy or not, and because they saw Matt Patricia, the insurance policy, sitting there, they felt like when they made this move, that was the move to make, okay? Now, I'll ask you again. I dare you to go and find me some data that shows where Matt Patricia is some kind of defensive guru, because all the success that he's had under the tutelage and under the direction of Bill Belichick. He doesn't develop defenses. He doesn't develop schemes. He does none of that, okay? But he was brought in as an insurance policy just in case Sean Desai didn't work out, cashed in the policy. And all of a sudden now you've got Matt Patricia running Sean Desai's defense and trying to make adjustments to it with all these young players that you're throwing in the mix and ineffective safeties and a lackluster talent at linebacker. What did you expect was going to happen? This defense has been 10 times as bad since Matt Patricia took it over as it was under Sean Desai. So now, who do you point the finger at? Because Nick said, hey, you know what, I decided to make the change. That's a bunch of crap, because you want to know something? When they flew back from Seattle, that decision was made on that 5-hour flight from Seattle back to Philadelphia. We didn't hear about it until Friday of that week, which leads me to believe, and Nick had gone through all of these press conferences, and people ask him, hey, Coach, any coaching change? You see any change that might be made? But Friday, he comes out, oh, we made the change. No. Jeffrey Lurie and Harry Roseman made that damn change Sunday night when they flew back. Sunday night, or Monday night, I should say.
It was after the Dallas game.
No.
And Sean Desai addressed the media on that Wednesday, and they had already made the decision.
It was already done, okay? So now, how do you get your players to be inspired when that locker room is fractured? And it's not fractured because of players. It's fractured because of a decision that you, as an organization, made, and you broke the defense. You took away their confidence. You took away their motivation and their belief, because half the locker room was believing in Sean Desai. The other side was believing in Matt Patricia. And Matt Patricia didn't give them anything more than Sean Desai was giving them. And you wonder why we just watched what we watched the last 3 weeks. 3 mediocre teams took our asses out to the woodshed and beat us like we stole something. Fucking ridiculous, man.
As bad as the defense is, as bad as they are, all season they have lacked personnel. I didn't agree with the coaching change either, but I also think they lack personnel.
Yeah, but Bill, you make adjustments for that. I understand that they had issues.
I agree with you.
But you make adjustments for that. And they didn't make any adjustments. They kept doing the same. As an offensive coordinator, okay, You got 4 game films that you break down every single week. When predictably you can look at a defense and know that this is what they're going to do week after week after week. Are you kidding me? You know how easy that is for the offense?
What I'm saying is yes, I agree with you on the defensive side of the ball. The offense put up 9 freaking points today. This offense, who doesn't lack personnel, who didn't make a change to their coordinator halfway through the season, which they probably should have done, put up 9 points today. Had zero answers for
let me interrupt
anything
you one more time.
Bucks
Let me
were doing.
interrupt you one more time, and I'm gonna let you go. As a former defensive player, I don't give a damn what the offense does. Okay, you know what my job is? My job is to stop them from scoring points. Okay, you let them put 32 up, a team that averages 20 points a game. Okay. And Baker Mayfield, who managed 9 points against the Carolina Panthers last week, as a defensive player, I don't give a damn what the offense does, okay? Sean Desai, Matt Patricia, and every other lame-ass coach on the defensive side, it's up to them to get those players ready to play and do their job because they can't score any points.
But to Bill's point, and you're absolutely right about the defense, Seth, the offense –
my anger's not
No, trust me, I get it. I know.
The offense had plenty of time to figure out that they weren't going to be with A.J. Brown in this game, okay? So you've got to figure out some way to pull some offense out of – and you didn't have much. You had Quez Watkins and Julio Jones. I get it. But so that means you've got to be crafty to generate some kind of offense other than that.
The worst part of this is all week, I actually was making jokes saying that, oh, they're going to throw the ball 40 times in the first half because everything's telling them to run the ball. And that's exactly what they did. Like, that's what's so frustrating to me. I have never seen an offensive coaching staff this stubborn. And Nick Sirianni wants to keep telling us this is his offense, then Nick Sirianni needs to go. He needs to go because if this was his answer tonight for an offense that doesn't lack personnel, not making excuses for the coaching staff on the defensive side of the ball, but this offense didn't lose anybody last year. They lost Isaac Sayamala. They replaced him with Cam Jurgens, who did play terrible.
He had a horrible game.
But there is no reason that we saw a decline like we saw from this offense, a decline that you saw from your quarterback, from every single player on that offense played worse this season than they played last season. To me, that is coaching, that is game planning, that is play calling, not absolving the players. But at the end of the day, that is more on the coaching staff for not taking advantage of a strong personnel group on the offensive side of the ball.
Well, who'd they lose from last year? They lost Shane Steichen.
And that's it.
I mean, this is the guy that turns out to be the most brilliant-looking man in the whole Eagles organization over the last 2 seasons, including their Super Bowl run from last year. And really, the grand scheme of things for me does come down to coaching. But when you make a change the way they did when it comes to Sean Desai, what you did as an organization was tell your defense, we got to 10-1 in spite of you. We were able to carry the horrible job that you guys were doing and how great the offense was, so we're only going to be making this change to the defensive side of the football. And as we were told in the weeks following, and I'll go to Hassan Reddick's most telling press conference, his media session from 2 weeks ago, the higher-ups made that decision. And although I believe that Nick Sirianni is going to be fired and that the organization needs to make that change, that needs to happen sooner rather than later, probably when they get back into Philadelphia tomorrow. But if you're the organization making that decision, you are taking into account that I think Nick Sirianni fell on the sword for Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman in the decision that they made as the quote-unquote higher-ups, as Hassan Reddick pointed out last week.
They have to make this departure. They have to. Okay.
There was no other choice. I agree.
They have to sever ties, and this is why. This is the first thing. I'm looking at Jason Kelce walking off the field. He's done. You could just tell by his body language. He's not coming back to this.
Hugging Stoutland, yeah.
He's not coming back to this, okay? So you're going to probably lose one of the best offensive linemen this franchise has ever seen, where he might consider playing another year if hope was there, okay? So he's gone. Dallas Goedert's got 2 more years left on his contract. Nick Sirianni comes back. I wouldn't want to play here for Nick Sirianni.
But he wasn't the same player when he came back from injury.
What are you talking about?
Dallas Goedert.
They don't throw him the ball. What are you talking about, Mike?
A little bit timid tonight even. He hasn't been the same player since he came back.
They don't run routes that enhances what he does best. all of these little 3-yard routes that you're running with him, when you say Travis Kelce running up the field, running option routes against man, when you see Kittles running seam routes and catch. When was the last time you seen Dallas Goedert catch a ball at the seam? Yeah. Teams play cover 2 against us.
Yeah,
Have you seen it?
I agree with you.
If I'm Devontae Smith, you think I want to come back here?
Well,
if I'm DeAndre Swift, do you think I want to come back here and get 12 carries a game? Hell no.
No.
And you want to know something else? You can't bring him back because all the other free agents, okay, the Eagles are going to have around $45 to $50 million in cap space. Please tell me, what free agent wants to come here watching this? Yeah, I almost cussed. this show. Who wants to see? Who wants to come play here?
Well, if you get a different head coach.
No, it used to be a destination. Players wanted to come here. After watching this collapse, after watching this coach decimate this football team over the last 6-7 weeks, if I'm a free agent, I want no parts of this team. None.
Let's look at the owner, who you saw the stone face from watching the game from the booth next to his wife, and then you saw Howie Roseman putting stuff in a bag to try to get out of Dodge. We have to take a critical look. Early in the season they were 10-1, and Howie Roseman was getting all these plaudits. Now we see what we have with the owner and a general manager that has to rebuild this whole thing because of this collapse. How much faith do we have in that?
I have more confidence in Howie Roseman than I do Jeffrey Lurie. I mean, I think Howie Roseman, over the last 6 years, has done a decent job making sure this team stayed competitive. This is a horrendous example of that, and that's not a fun thing to say right now, but I do believe that Jeffrey Lurie is putting his fingerprints on more of game plan, personnel decisions than he should as an owner. I love the fact that he'll sign big, fat checks to players. That's a great thing for an owner. But when it comes to actually trying to get involved in meddling in game day and football operations, that is a huge no-no for any owner. And it's one thing, you want the owner to sign those checks and all that. You never want to look at your head coach as if he is an employee. You always want to look at your head coach as if he is a boss. Like he is a guy making big decisions, tough decisions, motivating players and all that. And Nick Sirianni has certainly not looked like that over the last 7 weeks here. And as you continue to hear these reports coming out that Jeffrey Lurie is more involved than he has ever been when it's come to game day operations, when it comes to personnel, when it comes to that meddling owner that nobody really likes, that is the most horrifying thing. So we can talk about Nick Sirianni, and that's most likely the thing that's going to happen. Howie Roseman isn't losing his job. Jeffrey Lurie isn't selling the team tomorrow. But the most obvious thing that is going to happen is probably the easiest thing for this team to do of the tough decisions they have to make, which is move on from this really entire coaching staff, with maybe the exception of Jeff Stoutland.
Farzy, you can't separate Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman. You can't. You can't, because as good a job as we want to say that he's done, let's look at the lackluster job that he's done on the defensive side of the ball.
Sure.
You can't keep going to get undrafted free agents and keep bringing in special teams linebackers and converting safety to linebackers and hoping that you can make that transition.
A philosophy of the last 20 years.
This is how they've operated, okay? You can't continue to ignore the safety position. Beyond Malcolm Jenkins, name me another safety that the Eagles have had that's been worth a damn since B-Dog. Name me one.
I mean, C.D. Deuce had a good year last year.
And who's been here? Who's been here the entire time? Listen, don't talk to me about Blankenship. Don't talk to me about Blankenship. A, he can't stay healthy. He's been beat up all season long. He's a pass-catching liability, and the aggression that he played with that got him the starting job last year has disappeared. Do not talk to me about Reed Blankenship, okay? Talk to me about some players that they developed. And their biggest problem is they keep going to get these puppet coaches that bring in coaches who have no experience of being able to coach positions, okay? So when you draft players, you have to have somebody that's in position that can help you develop their skill set. When you got a guy that's never played football before or sparingly played before, and you put him in position because he's come up through the ranks from quality control, okay, to a position coach, but he has no toolbox that allows him to give tools to his players to get better week in and week out, year in and year out. That's coaching malfeasance, man. Do you understand what I'm saying? The game is so much more about more than just X's and O's. And then at the other end of the spectrum, how much is the is the analytics department really running this organization? How much more power do they have than Nick Sirianni and his offensive and defensive coordinator? This stinks. This looks a whole lot like Doug Peterson all over again at the very end. Nick Sirianni probably got sick and tired of them telling him what the hell to do, okay, and decided to give them everything that they wanted. You want big shots down the field? We'll give you big shots. You want passive-ass defense? We'll give you passive-ass defense. Look where it's gotten us.
To say nothing of the Shaq Leonard, Kevin Byard, Bradley Roby acquisitions, which also lay on Howie Roseman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't have faith that Howie Roseman can build this defense. I don't think he can build this defense at all. We talked about it on this show a couple weeks ago. I went through all the guys that he's drafted on the defensive side of the football. He swing and misses on everybody. He can draft D tackles. We'll give him that. Jalen Carter looks good. Milton Williams made some nice plays. Is Jordan Davis a good player? We still don't know. He had an up and down year. Some people think he's going to be a first-round bust. Outside of D tackle, you look at that defense, maybe he got lucky with this rookie class. It's still yet to be determined. But you go back to his last 4 or 5 drafts, there's nobody that he's drafted that is contributing to this defense outside of the D tackle position. They missed on all their edge rushers. They missed on their linebackers. They tried to piecemeal this with guys that nobody else wanted. Seth mentioned it earlier, that teams don't just let starters walk. There's a reason why Mike Tomlin said, you want Terrell Edmonds after he started here for 5 years on a 1-year deal? Take him. What happened? He's not even on the team anymore. Justin Evans. You want Justin Evans? He's been on IR his entire career. Where was he tonight? On IR. You want Shaq Leonard? Did he even play tonight? Did Shaq Leonard even get any snaps? If he did, he didn't make an impact. Titans said, you want Kevin Byard? Here, take him. How did he look tonight? So this is on Howie Roseman because he can't draft. And to Seth's point, they can't develop young talent, so they went and they tried to get guys that nobody else wanted. Zach Cunningham's another one. Nick Morrow's another one. Chicago said, you want Nick Morrow, who started here and led our team in tackles? Take him. We're going to upgrade to your linebacker from last year, a guy you actually did develop in T.J. Edwards, and they let him walk. So I don't have faith that Howie Roseman can build this defense because I don't think he's proven to us that he can. He got lucky a couple years. In 2017 when they won the Super Bowl, every one of his 1-year deals hit. Chris Long hit. Nigel Bradham hit. Who else did he bring in that year on the defense side of the ball? There was the corner that he brought in that had the touchdown. Patrick Robinson, did he have the touchdown against the Vikings?
Yes. In the NFC Championship game.
So there was all these 1-year deals that hit, but they cannot develop young talent on defense. And I'm worried about this rookie class.
And to punctuate that point that Bill so eloquently pointed out and that I talked about earlier, name me a young player that the Eagles have developed. The problem is when you don't have coaches that can develop young players, you draft these players and they never get to where, they never get to where they can be really productive. If you stop and look at it, look at all the free agents, Bill, that the Eagles have brought in over the years. Even the top-notch players, okay? You go and you get Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith didn't need no development. You want to know why? He was developed at Alabama, okay? Jalen Carter didn't need to be developed. He was developed at Georgia. Jordan Davis developed at Georgia. At Georgia. So tell me, what players do you see that the Eagles actually develop? You know what they do? They go out in free agency and they go out and acquire guys that already come here with the skill set because they don't have the coaches that possess the ability to develop skill sets, okay? And then they have a little bit of run or the guy leaves in free agency and then they're stuck all over again having to go out and find players to come in and plug in. You got 2 linebackers that are special teams players. All of a sudden you're going to make them starters and you don't have a linebackers coach who can teach them even how to read plays or where they fit in the 4 or 5 man front. Like, I can take a 12-year-old and stand them there and say, okay, if they run this way against this front, this is your gap. If they run that way, that's your gap. And you want to know something? I've had 12-year-olds that play it to the T. But we got grown men playing in the National Football League that don't have a clue where the hell they fit on the damn run play for 18 games. Not just one game, not just one game on and off or a great game here or there. 18 freaking games. They don't even know where the hell they fit.
All right. I'm gonna save this question for a little later in the show, as it involves perhaps a new head coach and connecting the dots with Jeffrey Lurie, a man from New England. But right now, it is time to bring in our pal Gary Kane. If you're looking to hire right now in the IT, engineering, manufacturing, or technology fields, contact Gary Kane, his team at Kane Partner Staffing Solutions. And here's how you can connect.
Staffing is not easy, but that's what we do every day, all day. The key to our success is storytelling, asking the right questions to find the right people. I'm Gary Kane, president of Kane Partners. We want to be your staffing